Hello everyone and welcome to iCast. I'm Gina Anderson, guest hosting today's episode with Hanae Takahashi from Friends of the Earth Japan. Today we'll be discussing recently implemented plastic bag legislation and climate change issues in Japan. Thank you, Hanae, for joining me.
Thank you for introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Hanae Takahashi, a campaigner of climate change and energy at Friends of the Earth Japan. Thank you again for inviting me, and I'm excited to discuss about these hot topics. After you listen to this podcast, I hope you understand why plastic and climate change are bad and how they are interlinked.
Maybe to get started, you could share a bit about Friends of the Earth and what led you to join them?
Okay, Friend of the Earth Japan is a member of Friend of the Earth International, which is an NGO aimed for the international environment justice. Friend of the Earth International's office is located in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And as for Japan, it has been active since 1980. So it's 40 years old now. And I have been working for Friend of the Earth Japan since 2018. Before that, I worked as an international tax consultant at KPMG for 2 years. The jobs at KPMG was very interesting for me, but at the same time, I was very conscious about global inequality and environmental issues. In such timing, my university professor introduced me a vacancy at Friend of the Earth Japan. So then I joined Friend of the Earth Japan.
I know Friends of the Earth does many different things they have a global reach, but at different geographies, they do different things. What are the specific issues you focus on in Japan?
Okay. Friend of the Earth Japan works in 4 major areas. Our activities cover, firstly, climate change and energy. Second, forest and biodiversity. Then third, development, finance, and environment. The last one is Fukushima and nuclear phase out. Yes, that's all.
Okay, great. A lot of things. To get started, let's talk about plastic waste. We wanted to talk about plastic waste and climate change. So starting with plastic waste, many visitors to Japan are often struck by the large amount of plastic packaging that are used for everything from pastries to bananas to flowers to clothing and beyond. From July 1st, legislation came into place requiring retail stores to charge shoppers at least ¥1 for plastic shopping bags. What do you think about the new legislation? Do you think it'll make a difference?
Okay, to put it simply, it's not enough. However, people's consciousness is changing. One of my friends is working at a retail store, and she said that many customers now bring their own bags and refuse to receive shopping bags. That's a big change, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's raising consciousness is an important aspect of it. In France, I know there was similar legislation that was implemented in 2016, and retail stores were completely banned from providing any single-use shopping bags. So instead, they were required to charge at least 10 cents, which is a bit more than the minimum for the Japanese charge. And it was really to encourage customers to bring their own reusable bags. Most of the charges in Japan are more like ¥3 or ¥5, which is a bit less. Do you think that provides enough of a financial incentive to really encourage shoppers to change their habits? Or do you think that the legislation could be stronger? Or how do you think this might evolve?
From my perspective, it's not enough. Plastic bags are no longer a luxury we can afford. It may seem radical, but in Germany, some supermarkets have already stopped providing shopping bags altogether. Additionally, the same thing is happening in Japan. The other day, I found a store in Fujisawa, which is in Kanagawa Prefecture. They didn't give out shopping bags. Instead, they stocked paper bags brought by customers. It was very amazing and interesting for me.
Do you think that type of model could apply more widely? Could you imagine other stores trying to do that?
Yes, I hope so. And some of my friends, how can I say, expect this movement spread out more and more.
Mm. The other thing I was wondering about is fruits and vegetables in Japan are often sold in plastic packaging, often individually wrapped. So you'll have one zucchini wrapped in its own package or one banana wrapped in its own package, for example. Do you think that this use of single-use packaging for fruits and vegetables is something that could change in Japan? Are there any cultural barriers to behavior change?
I think it's strongly related to our cultural habitat because Japanese people are obsessed with cleanliness and convenience. And the supermarkets and convenience store are rich with a tendency to this Japanese cleanliness. So they overpackage our food. So this is why single-use packaging for fruits and vegetables have been happening.
Do you think anything could change that cultural habit, or you think it's too, how could we work on that cultural habit to make that change? I think you're right. There's a really big focus on cleanliness and convenience.
Mm.
But is it possible to get past that or change anything about that to help the Japanese rethink their relationship with some of the single-use plastic packaging? Do you see any ways ahead?
I think we can change this habit because my father said when he was a child, many fruits and vegetables were unpacked. So this, how can I say, overpackaging is very recent thing. So we can go back in good way. So we can stop this single-use packaging, I think.
Mm. I had another question about other single-use plastic items, and I was wondering if you thought there was other kind of legislations or actions that should happen in Japan to reduce, for example, straws or things like that.
I think only plastic bag is not enough. As you said, straw and other things, other single-use plastic should be banned. And one more thing is we should stop using single-use blah blah because recently, Starbucks introduced paper straw, but which is only single-use. Then, how can I say? The single-use is kind of very waste. We have to reuse. We have to use the things we can reuse to reduce the amount of waste. The important thing is not avoid plastic. We should change our habits to our lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I understand. Using more reusable items rather than deciding between material choices if they're single use.
Yeah.
There's Berkeley put in place, the city of Berkeley put in place a pretty radical ban on all single-use items. So it could be plastic or it could be paper. So all straws, all takeout containers, they either have to be reusable or they have to be compostable. In certain cases, they could be compostable. Do you think any type of similar legislation would be possible in Japan?
Yes, if the Japanese people require. I think this policy is necessary for if we think about our future.
And there's one other waste subject I wanted to ask you about with the Basel Convention. I understood that Friends of the Earth works on issues related to the Basel Convention with Japan. What have you been focusing on for that?
As Friends of the Earth International and Friends of the Earth Asia Pacific are involved in Basel Convention. And because, for example, Japan export a lot of plastic garbage to Malaysia and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and the people in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and Malaysia very care about this issue. So we have to know about, Japanese people do not know we are exporting such a waste. We should know about this.
So another issue is how Japan defines recycling. There are three classifications of recycling in the Japanese system. There's material, chemical, and thermal. So material and chemical recycling would involve reprocessing plastic waste into new plastic items or plastic materials. However, in other countries, thermal recycling typically wouldn't be considered recycling. It would be termed as incineration with energy recovery, and classified a bit differently. If we count all the types of recycling, material, chemical, and thermal, Japan's overall plastic recycling rate is 86%. But when we just look at the part that is material chemically recycled, which would count as recycling in many other places in the world, the rate is only 27%. Do you have any thoughts on, could we see Japan moving away from incineration and towards more material reuse or recycling for plastics? Are there any policies or actions that might help make that happen?
Okay. At this moment, it's very difficult to reduce the thermally recycled portion because recently how can I say, incineration power plant is, the number of incineration power plants is increasing in Japan because Japanese government regards incineration power plant as a renewable energy source. So
okay.
it kind of where it's not the regulation to reduce the garbage. It's a kind of create more and more garbage for power plants. So this is, I think, the very difficult point to reduce the plastic use. And so personally, the point is not recycling, but diffuse. We have to reduce the amount of waste when we think about the environment friendly, blah, blah. So to say more, we have to aim zero waste if we're conscious about environment. So we have to stop receiving additional packaging, which we know is going to be waste.
And maybe reduce the amount of incinerators if that's, or
yes.
Move investment away from incineration plants towards other types of energy sources. Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on plastics in Japan, or maybe we should move on to climate change and coal? I know it's a linked subject as the plastics come from fossil fuels as well, but I wanted to see if you had any other thoughts specifically on plastics.
Maybe we can move next part.
Okay. So we wanted to talk about climate change. So Japan has been criticized in many instances for not setting more ambitious greenhouse gas reduction targets. And early this year, Japan announced that they would maintain their existing targets for greenhouse gas reductions. And the target is 26% by 2030, down from 2013 levels. There's also been related criticism about Japan's shift towards coal power and investment in building new coal power plants, following on the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and the Fukushima disaster. I understand that Friends of the Earth has been focusing on this issue.
Yes, Friend of the Earth Japan is working for both coal and nuclear. I am talking about coal. After the Fukushima nuclear disaster, we faced two challenges. The first one is power shortage in Japan, but this is a small matter because the power shortage was temporary at the time. The second one, the TEPCO, which is a Tokyo Denryoku, needed more money to compensation for nuclear disaster. In order to gather the money, electricity liberalization was happened. Electricity liberalization has a good aspect, such as an increase of small renewable business. However, 50 coal power plant projects were planned in Japan. This is because coal is cheap. In order to make profit, large enterprises often turn to the cheapest source. At this moment, now, 19 power plants have been operating, and 11 power plants are under construction. One of them is Yokosuka's new coal power plant, which I'm mainly engaging in.
Could you speak a bit about the Yokosuka plant?
Okay, the Yokosuka power plant project was happening since 2016. Then from the beginning, the local resistance against this project for 3 reasons. First, the construction of new coal-fired power plant is inconsistent with the Paris Agreement, which is climate agreement, and we have no more room to emit extra CO2. Second, coal power plant emits air pollutant, which cause a bad impact on our health. Shockingly, the new power plants are located next to residential area and in front of nature park. Thirdly, the environmental assessment was simplified because the location there was a very old fired power plant, so the operator JERA think it's just replace the power plant, so we don't have to take all steps. So that's why the environment assessment is simplified. The local residents think it's a very serious point. And now they are gathering signature against JERA, the operator of this project, and have filed suit for Ministry of Economic and Trade and Industry, the Japanese government. As for rescinding Japanese policy, METI, Ministry of Economy and Trading Industry, announced a coal fade-out plan. They say they will stop the operation of old and low-quality plants, but at the same time, they will expand high-efficiency plant at a large scale. Therefore, it's not enough to achieve the Paris Agreement.
For the Yokosuka plant, the local residents, like you mentioned, had sued the national government. However, the plant seems to have been constructed as planned. Did their actions actually make a difference, do you feel, in this case?
Yes, even though the construction have been started, the lawsuit create a momentum to demand the stop construction. There were already 4 hearings, and each time people came to show their solidarity with local residents to demand no more stop coal construction. So it's work.
Other advanced economies are phasing out coal. For example, France has announced that by 2022, they'll phase out coal, the United Kingdom by 2025. And in the United States, the utilities are also beginning to retire coal power plants. Why is Japan continuing to invest in coal as a major energy source, despite the high greenhouse gas emissions and resulting impact on climate change and temperature increases that are linked with burning coal for energy?
Yeah, this is because the biggest reason is there is a myth in Japan. Coal is cheap and coal is clean. Japan has a high quality. So this is the biggest reason. However, the cost of renewable energy is decreasing and will fall below the price of coal. Therefore, it doesn't make sense anymore to continue with on coal. Another justification is that if we stop coal power plants, lots of people will lose their job. I think that is true, but that is why a government-led just transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy is required.
And in terms of policies for renewable energy, what do you think needs to be put in place? I know that currently renewable energy accounts for only about 11% of Japan's energy mix. There's also a feed-in tariff scheme, but the pricing was initially too high with the financial burden falling on consumers. So I know the government has announced they'll change that towards more of a competitive bidding system. What do you think will make a difference in terms of increasing renewable energy generation in Japan and making it more widespread?
Yeah, actually, there are much more serious issues than feed-in tariff around electricity system reform. Recently, the government created new electricity market. These new market systems are very complicated. However, make it in short, these new markets are a system to make big electricity company more richer, but exploit newcomers that aim to spread renewable energy. Yeah, we have to stop this new market at first. Yeah, I think so.
Mm. And how about there's also the related issue of Japan has been criticized for not only using coal energy technology domestically, but also exporting coal technology abroad to developing countries. So, for example, there was a report published by Oil Change International earlier this year showing that Japan's export credit agency provides more support to oil, gas, and coal projects abroad than any other government internationally. So it would be an estimated 7.8 billion US dollars annually. I understand that Friends of the Earth has also been working on the issue of the export issue related to Japan.
Japan has been criticized for the reliance on coal. I have attended COP24 and COP25, and every time Japan has given ironic the Fossil of the Day award, which is given to countries that are reluctant to tackle climate change. You may have heard that the government restricted the rule for coal exporting at the beginning of this month. The government has announced they will not export coal-fired power plants in principle. However, there are still loopholes. The Japanese government says Japan-made coal power plants are high quality. However, there are two problems. First, even with the coal power plants with the highest quality and efficiency, the amount of CO2 emissions are double that of the gas power plant. Second, which is escalating worse, the standard of the exported technology is based in line with the host country's standard. That means Japan does not have to export the most technologically advanced model that claims to be the most energy efficient. For example, Bunatsu, which is planned to be exported in Vietnam, is lower quality than one of Japanese. Sometimes people say developing countries need electricity for their economic growth. However, we can say that the current policy of exporting coal power plant is questionable for three reasons. First, around the project site, land grabbing is rampant and people often lose their livelihood. Second, today, as I said before, the cost of renewable energy is decreasing and expected to fall below the cost of coal. The last one is people in developing countries recognize that and are in line with new global standards, demanding not dirty energy, but clean, green, sustainable energy system. They are aware of Japanese capabilities for advanced technology, and they know that Japan can do better.
Do you think we could see Japan actually shifting to exporting renewable energy technologies in the future, shifting away from exporting the coal technology and shifting towards exporting other renewable technologies or other green technologies towards developing countries?
Yeah, of course, because actually, Japan has already started exporting renewable technologies. So yeah, why the point is very simple. Why don't we stop coal exporting?
And focus instead that finance or that on the renewable energy sector, or
Yes.
cleaner
Yes.
technologies.
Yes.
What type of renewable energy technologies do you believe are the most promising for Japan?
Okay, I am not an expert of renewable energy, but I have read that offshore wind power plant is the most possible energy source in Japan, because Japan is an island country, and now government is discussing how to promote offshore wind power plant now.
Okay. Besides coal-related emissions, are there other aspects of Japan's climate change reduction plan that you'd like to comment on? What else does Japan need to do to achieve more ambitious reductions in terms of greenhouse gas emissions?
Okay. In Japan, most of greenhouse gases came from burning fossil fuel. So yeah, it's very ambitious, but we have to stop not only coal, but also oil and gas uses. For example, we have to promote more and more electric car, EVs, and also, for energy, when we talk about energy, we have to switch 100 renewable energy.
That seems very ambitious. What's the timeline do you think we could anticipate Japan making a shift towards 100% renewable energy, for example?
It's personally, we have to target by 2050, to achieve 100 renewable energy. And if we set the middle target, for example, by 2030, yesterday I saw the report about energy mix. It says, we have to target 40% renewable energy
by 2030.
By 2030.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Now, because I remember that in 2018, the renewable energy is only 18 or 17%. It's quite low.
So be doubling it at least by 2030. Okay. And then shifting 100% by 2050.
Yes.
Over time, Japan has reduced its dependency on oil, shifting towards coal and natural gas. However, it's maintained a high level of overall fossil fuel dependency, around 87% as of 2017. What could help catalyze a more definitive shift away from fossil fuel-based energy sources in Japan?
Yes. I have one solution for this, because from my perspective, the consumer demand is very strong for this issue. If all consumer demand, we want to use renewable energy, then the electricity company, have to provide renewable energy. So I think the consumer demand is the most powerful way to phase out from coal and other fossil fuels.
That actually brings up another question. In Japan, what type of actor do you feel is the most important in making a difference in environmental issues? So be it climate change or plastics or other things. Do you think it would be the government, for example, national, regional, local, businesses, individuals, or other organizations? Who do you feel is the most important?
Yes, from my perspective, individuals as well as government, both is very important. Yeah, both is needed. Individuals' action and also, yeah, the government should put some regulation for plastic bags and kind of fossil fuels.
How do you think that environmental awareness has evolved over time in Japan? What types of changes do you expect to see in the future?
In my opinion, the impact of Greta is also huge in Japan. Japanese youth have been stand up to demand climate intensive policy since February 2018, just 1 year ago. Now the movement is spread out around 30 areas in Japan, and some cities declare climate emergency by their works because students demand their mayors please declare the climate emergency. Yeah, this is very, how can I say, yeah, amazing work. And they are literally leading Japanese climate movement. And yes, as for the second question, what type of changes do I expect to see in the future? It's green recovery. Green recovery is an idea that when rebuilding our society, we should take into account the environment and fairness in our policy. In this year, we are facing COVID-19 pandemics, and our economy has been hardly hit. Additionally, the pandemic exposed social inequality to our society. Some scientists said over natural destructions caused this pandemic. So we have to take into account environmental protection and social fairness in our future policy.
And one last question for you. From working in the United States and the European Union, I've seen that social and cultural outlooks and habitats can play a large role in moving towards a more sustainable society. For example, we talked about the single-use packaging for fruits and vegetables, but that's important culturally in terms of cleanliness and convenience in Japan. In Japan, do you see any other existing cultural habits that could either help or hinder moving towards a more sustainable model?
One famous Japanese word is mottainai. Mottainai means to save our resources or to save, to put it simply, to save our resources and don't make it waste. Then Japanese people regularly practice saving power and water at home. These habits come from, I think, mottainai, idea of mottainai, to save our resources. And another one is, I also feel in Japanese city, the majority of people regularly use public transportation and bicycle, not use their own private cars. So I think this habit also contribute to sustainable society in Japan.
Very good. Is there anything else that you wanted to speak about or mention? We talked about plastics, single-use items, climate change. Anything else you feel we missed or that you wanted to mention?
No.
Okay.
It's okay.
To close out then, maybe could you share a message about climate change that listeners could apply in their own lives?
Okay. Recently, I suggest 5 actions. For the first one, please change your home electricity to renewable energy. Yes. There is a campaign to let people change their home electricity, which is Power Shift campaign. Please Google, and yeah, there is a homepage which introduces very eco-friendly electricity company, so you can find good eco-friendly electricity. The second one is, yeah, let's try to less meat diet, because we can, I didn't mention about industrial meat industry, but meat industry also emits large amount of greenhouse gases. So if we reduce the amount of meat diet, we can contribute climate change. No, we can save our planet. And third one, yeah, just love nature and feel the earth. Many people recently, from my perspective, lose their sense of wonder. So we have, I think, if we, how can I say? Yeah, it's important to understand the human and nature is deeply connected. If we feel such connection, we don't want to destroy nature. So yeah, just feel the earth. Yeah, going hiking, go to the sea and cycling. Yeah, anyway, there are many ways to feel the earth. And the fourth one is, yes, please share your eco action SNS. I think it needs a little bit courage, but it makes other people change. I believe that. And the last one is, yeah, be positive and never give up. Many people think it's too late to take action, but if we don't take action, it gets worse. So please don't give up and be positive. Yeah, start action, what you can do. That's all.
Thank you so much, Hanae-san. That sounds great. Thank you again, Hanae-san, for joining. And thank you everyone for joining us today. This podcast is an initiative of the Institute of Contemporary Asian Studies at Temple University Japan campus. To learn more, please visit www.tuj.ac.jp/ICAS. Thank you for listening and see you next time.
See you next time.